Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wired Horror Talk stream. We're going to be joined today by Bruno and Ricardo from Camel101, developers of Those Who Remain, and we'll be discussing our favorite horror games, our horror movies, and things that may have influenced everything around the development of the game. As well, of course, as hearing all of your thoughts. Please make yourself comfortable. Get a nice comfy pillow to hide behind, something to drink, and we'll be with you in one moment. Okay, let's get this show on the road, shall we? The spooky music is doing things to me. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a little bit, it's a little bit different to our usual setup. You're going to see in a moment what I mean by this. You'll notice that we don't have our usual wired setup. My lovely bookcase of video game paraphernalia is nowhere to be seen. And this is because we are working remotely, and this, normally the case when we have developers on, they phone in from all over the world, but in this particular instance, I'm also outside of the office. So you will have to forgive a couple of rough edges on the stream as we pull it together. I know you will be kind. Regardless, we are being joined today by... Oh, hello everyone, you're on the camera now, by the way. Do you want to give a wave? Hello!
Hello!
Hello! Don't look so surprised. Don't look so shocked. don't look so shocked to be here.
It's always a shock.
It's always a surprise. First of all, before we get knee deep into it again, I am operating from home. I don't have any of my usual work equipment with me, so all of our audio levels that are meticulously tweaked for all of our streams are going to need to be a little bit readjusted here. So I'm going to ask our fine guests here to sound off one at a time and kind of just say hello, who they are, introduce themselves, and you tell me whether you can hear them A-OK. Does that sound good? That sounds good to me. Okay, so Bruno, do you want to go first?
Hello everyone, my name is Bruno. I'm the lead programmer on Those Who Remain. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and that's it about me.
Awesome. Yo, can I get a mic check? The levels are looking good for me here, but can you beautiful people in the chat hear the Sir Bruno? That's while we wait for them to respond. Ricardo, do you like to jump on?
Hello, I'm Ricardo.
Bruno needs up like a tiny bit. I'll turn him up a little bit as a treat. I'll turn him up a little bit as a treat. There we go. We'll turn him up. Okay.
Ricardo needs tiny down.
Ricardo needs tiny down. Tale as old as time. Tale as old as time.
I'm Ricardo. I'm the game designer / writer from Those Who Remain. And I'm also working from home, enjoying the
enjoying the few silver linings towards isolation and quarantine. The few though they are. So where are you both hailing from? Bruno, you're over in.
I'm in the Bay Area in Oakland, in California.
And Ricardo?
And I'm in Portugal. I'm
so we're covering
near Lisbon.
Everywhere right now, but we got Portugal, we got the Bay Area, we got the edge of London. Truly an international star-studded cast. Star-studded cast for you all this afternoon. Now, as we have kind of pitched this stream, working remote does mean a couple of weird edges with the wide streams. A lot of the early builds and things that we would have access to, I do not have access to at home. So we decided to take today away from the focus on Those Who Remain as an actual game, and more the general concept and scope of horror as a genre when it comes to video games, when it comes to films, when it comes to comic books, when it comes to anything, really, because the great thing about horror is that it comes in so many different flavors, with so many different types and so many different influences and so many parts of everything. And, as developers of a horror game, I mean, you must be immersed in it, right? Like you must be literally like knee deep in just the most horrendous stuff, like at all times. I've got no idea how you sleep at night, if I'm honest with you. You know, it's kind of, I'm gonna just sit here and just look at stuff that makes me feel really uncomfortable and awful all the time, and really think about how we can upset as many people as possible. I mean, obviously that's not the goal of the game in the slightest, but you get the gist of it. So. It's going to be a couple of hours. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk through all of our favourite films, our favourite games, things that made it as direct references in Those Who Remain, which you may have spotted in our earlier playthrough stream. If you haven't already, go check the videos up top, and you will be able to see the first hour or so of the game. A couple of weeks ago, we had a little walkthrough and kind of looked at things. But we're also going to be hearing from you folks as well. I'm already seeing some wonderful takes in the chat. By the way, Hubble603, Love to Play 2, Wardy, Atu Kitty, I really hope I'm not butchering that name. Thank you very much. And Intron D, welcome to the show. Wonderful Wardy and Harrison in the background there. Always a pleasure to see you in the streams. So we will 100% take on board your recommendations if there's something that you guys haven't heard that you might be able to put to use in any further kind of developments. Kikai says, I don't do horror games, but my partner is apparently on a mission to change that. Okay, well, you know what? Let's softball it. Let's do a nice softball, okay? So if you're looking at somebody and you're going, hey, I want you to play horror games. They're not a horror game player, right? It's not really their thing. What do you put in front of them as their first horror game? Or what is someone's first horror game that you would recommend to them?
I will probably start with something not too heavy.
Yeah, start them off light. Just kind of trick them into it.
Probably Soma, which can be considered kind of horror, but it's not exactly horror. But it has a very strong story, so it's good enough to grab you in and get you excited.
So Ricardo goes for Soma. That's not a bad shout at all. Bruno, what about yourself? What are you feeling?
Well, I would go with one of the classics. I would go with Amnesia.
Amnesia. That's backed up with Harrison in the chat there. Harrison's in agreement with you on this one.
But I'm not sure I would... I mean, I know some people have really problems playing horror games. I never had that problem myself, but I acknowledge there's people that have them. But I'm not sure I'm going to. But yeah, I think I would go with Amnesia.
Okay, that's a good solid choice.
But it's not very heavy.
It's a good solid choice because honestly, one thing about both of those games, just jumping in the chat here, let's have a look. We got Kiko Rinza saying, my first horror game was Teletubbies for the PlayStation 1. I'm not entirely sure. Was it really that? What was horrific about that? Was it the graphics? I'm gonna, you know what? That's gonna be an after stream research for me. I'm gonna have to go check out this game. I'm gonna go and have a look. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone for the PlayStation. Was that a horror game? Are you just listing old PS1 games? Is this what's happening here? Have the modern games community just decided that old PS1 games are all horror? Which, you know, I could jive with. M. Punter, another one of Wired employees. God bless him, Matt. Hello there. He is the fine gentleman that takes all of these streams and cuts them all up and gets them uploaded to YouTube after the fact. So, hello YouTube for future. Pleasure to see you. If you're watching this in about a week's time, then it's because of the work of M. Punter down there in the chat. You've got him to blame for all of this. Literally all of this. Harrison says, if I feel like it, insert naughty word. Oh, right, I'm not allowed to swear here, am I? That's going to be interesting. That's going to be real interesting. I'm in my home environment, where I normally stream from, like, for my own personal pleasure, and I'm used to swearing like a sailor, so I'm just going to have to remind myself right now that this is business and not pleasure. Thank you for
That's going to be edited, probably.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Do I need a bleeper? Do we have a bleep button? Can someone get a bleep button for me? Five Nights at Freddy's. Oh, I've still never played those games. The Five Nights
I
at
never
Freddy's
played
games.
those either.
Me neither.
One game I played, which was really immersive, but I played it in VR, so that might make a difference, is Narcosis.
Narcosis.
It's really good in VR. I don't know without VR because I never did.
Whoa,
But
add that to your list.
walking around in the bottom of the ocean and seeing those giant spider crabs walking around. It's really
Nope, I'm out. I hate crabs. I
Narcosis.
No, I'm out. You stay away from those crabs. I'm out.
Yeah, it's really immersive.
Awesome. We'll definitely put that one on.
It's on my list too.
Let me have a look. Kikaki comes in and goes that the partner got them into Co-op Fear 3. Co-op Fear 3 is an interesting one because it's kind of on the opposite spectrum. I want to take the conversation back to Soma for a second. Purely because, and I feel like I've kind of bumped this quite a lot in the Those Who Remain Discord. Soma, for me, is possibly one of my favorite games of all time. It's not just a fantastic horror game, it's just a fantastic game kind of all around. And much like Amnesia, the kind of the real stripped back nature of the options that you have as an actual player, as for how you can interact with things, how you can, deal with assailants, really kind of adds that kind of tension, right? Like in a horror games, there's multiple different avenues as to how they inspire that level of fear within you. If you look back at the kind of early Resident Evil games, a lot of the tension and the horror from those came from the as they're now known, the tank controls and the inability to see outside of the camera angles. You'd walk down a corridor and the angle would be really weird, and you'd hear something off screen, but you didn't know where it was, and you're kind of fumbling around, basically trying to play Mozart on your controller in order to kind of like, I need to turn left and then move forward and then pull out my gun and then aim up, and then like that itself was this kind of fumbling, panic-inducing feeling. But Soma and Amnesia kind of take it the other way, where it's less about the controls, it's more a case of you are completely, to all intents and purposes, you are defenseless, right? Like you're not really you're not running around with a crowbar and bashing head crabs that are jumping at you. You're not pulling out a gun and wasting on the zombies. You're kind of a passenger to everything that is going on and just trying to move out of the situation. But Fear 3 was interesting, the long-winded way to get back around to Fear 3 here, because it was, at its heart, a straight-up action game, right? Did either of you play Fear?
I don't remember if I played Fear 2.
You played Fear.
I played Fear 1 and 2, I don't remember if I played the third.
I played Fear 1, and I played Fear 2, I don't remember playing either. So Fear 3, if I'm not mistaken, that was the co-op one, right? Like that was where they basically made the story about the gentleman that you'd been playing throughout the previous two and the kind of evil psychic brother, and they made it so like one of you was like a spooky ghost guy that had psychic powers, and the other one was like your kind of boots on the ground with a gun.
I never played it.
It's interesting because it still had a lot of the familiar Fear trappings, right? Like, it was still spooky long-haired women crawling out of places that spooky long-haired women shouldn't crawl out of. It's going to open this washing machine and we'll close that again really quickly. It was still that
Japanese horror style.
Yeah, 100%. You're looking at your rings, you're looking at things like that. It still had a lot of those trappings, but at its core, it was slow-motion gun action, and kind of, additionally, if you add another player into something, it's kind of hard to be scary, right? Like the more people you have in something, in my experience anyway, the lower that fear level gets, right? You kind of like, it's not just you walking around on your own anymore. It's you and your buddy going on an adventure, and the guy that you don't want to scream in front of your friend. That's okay. I got this. I'm not scared. Are you scared? I'm not scared. Are you scared? No, that's an interesting one. That's super interesting. Let's just get a couple more things from the chat up in here. Outlast. another great horror game, kind of clinching on the Soma kind of amnesia stripped back.
I just wanted to
go ahead.
to say that you mentioned Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw the announcement for Resident Evil 7.
Oh yeah.
I thought no, it's not going to work. It's not Resident Evil.
Really?
No. But then I played it, and man, it's I love it. It's
honestly, you know what the weird thing is? I had a lot of the same misgivings with Resident Evil 7 when I first saw the announcement and so on and so forth. Like and please don't get me wrong, Capcom, I love you. You basically did everything last generation right. You brought back Resident Evil and Devil May Cry and Monster Hunter, and you did them so well. And you basically owned last year, like they did. They did great.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't come to Resident Evil for the horror, especially past Resident Evil 4 when it took that kind of third-person, over-the-shoulder action. They come for the gore, and they come for the hammy dialogue and the kind of, Chris Redfield with biceps bigger than any human head has ever been, punching a boulder in a volcano as part of what is possibly one of the greatest boss fights that has ever been created, is Chris Redfield versus the boulder. But they don't come for the horror. But speaking of Resident Evil 7 exclusively, like, I genuinely feel that the first maybe half of that game was actually the strongest of it. I feel like when which is strange, because like you say, that's kind of not what people go for. They go for the kind of, balls to the wall, run and gun kind of action and resource, management and all this kind of stuff. When you get to the kind of halfway point in that game and you're given 1,000,001 guns and you're drowning in SMG ammo, you're running around a ship just wasting these things like they're not even a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the game was still fun, but the edge was taken off. Like I was completely flipped. The first hour. Cardigan, are we talking about scary things in games? We are indeed. All of the horror talk. So please feel free to throw all of your own anecdotes in here. We're basically just riffing off chat at the moment, and I love it. But that first half of the game where you're walking around that house and you've got no idea about whether the father's going to smash through a wall or you're kind of seeing these one or two horrible creatures just kind of appearing at random locations, and the tension is so thick that you can taste it. You can literally taste it in there. That kitchen is one of the most grotesquely rendered places I have ever seen in a video game. When you walk in there and you see everything on that table and you're like, I am not opening one fridge. Oh my, this is disgusting. Like, it was so well done. It really
I agree with you, but Resident Evil 7, it's not exactly a Resident Evil game. It's still a good game.
Yeah.
But it's not on a traditional Resident Evil game. But it's still
the slightest.
It's a different approach, but
it's not just a camera angle. It's everything is different, but it's still a good game. It's a very good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I felt exactly the same. About halfway through, I had like a machine gun, the grenade launcher, the guns. My backpack was always full of ammo, so it was an action game.
It's like, do I need to take these herbs with me? No, I'll just take another 500 SMG rounds, because honestly, you don't need to heal if there's nothing to hurt you, right? Like, if you like that's how it works. The best defense is a good offense.
And I remember that I finished the game without ever using the grenade launcher, because I was keeping it for something.
Right. So let's just talk about that for a second. I want to quickly, because this is something that I feel it might not be unique to horror games as a concept, but it is most definitely like it is emphasized in horror games as a concept. But we'll get to that in 2 seconds. Let's quickly catch up on the chat, because we have talked amongst ourselves for a bit there. Harrison says Darkness 2, Flash horror game. I thought you were talking about the comic Darkness game. Did you remember those? I can't remember who made those, but they were based on the Darkness comics. With the mafia, the mafia mob dude with the giant tentacles that were kind of sentient and stuff. They were kind of early PS3 titles. Early PS3 360 titles. So they're interesting, more gore fests than they were straight up horror, to be fair. Kiko says, I'm easily scared when young. I hated when the DualShock rumbled. Yep. Honestly, that still gets me to this day. Sometimes I'll leave a controller plugged in without realizing. and I'll be playing away on my keyboard, and there'll be an explosion, and you'll hear this that kind of rattles under the desk, and the PC's like vibrating across the floor, and the controller hits the ground, and I go up and then hit the roof, and everyone's treated to the manly squeals that I have. Believe me, I scream very manly. Let's have a look. Scared in The Sims whenever the Grim and the Burglar spawns? You know. Okay, we're gonna get to that in a minute, Kiko. That's put this on the list. Don't let us forget things that are scary that really shouldn't be. Like things that aren't traditionally meant to be horrifying, but kind of are. Because I've got a great one for you, an absolute great one. Although you did come into Resident Evil with the cheesy lines, exactly. First minutes of Bioshock are terrifying. I feel like that's the same with quite a lot of games, actually. Like, because the first openings of a game, you don't know what your limitations are, right? Like, you haven't learned the rules of the game world yet, or what you're capable of, or what the game's kind of pace or anything is. So, like, the early settings of a game are always the most scary. Yomawari, I've not heard of that one, Kiki. Can I call you Keek? And headbutt my microphone? Can I call you Keek? Because I feel like I'm just going to mispronounce your name at every opportunity.
Keek.
Okay. Keek, if that's okay. Keek. Cardigan says, what is scary? Playing Minecraft hardcore. It's getting so dark that you can't see anything, you've got no light, and you hear a creeper. Right. I mean, that kind of falls on what we were talking about a second ago. Something that's definitely not designed to be scary on its face. Like, you know, they didn't sit there and go, hey, I really hope that someone poops their pants when it gets dark, but just the combination of all of those elements adds up to something scary. Please keep talking amongst yourselves, chat, and give us something to thrive off here. I'm loving this. I'm loving your inputs. You're doing amazing. So taking it back to where we were before our catch-up there, resources and the using or not using of them. Again, nothing that is unique to horror games, but something that is very exemplified. You mentioned you didn't use a grenade launcher at all in Resident Evil 7. And I don't know whether it's just because of the inventory management in the early Resident Evil games, but I am a fiend, like literally without fail, for turning around and going, here's all of these weapons, we've got shotguns, we've got rocket launchers, we've got magnums, and I'm going to take all of the ammo for them and put them in the chest, and all of these big weapons are going to go in the chest, just in case I need them. And then you never do. You always find a way to muddle on through, right? Like, you always find a way to go, well, this room was awful, and I used 5 first aid kits, and 2 first aid sprays, and 75 shotgun shells, but I killed them all, and I didn't need to use 5 grenades. And, yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, Ricardo. That's something that I most definitely suffered from. During the course of all of those games playthroughs.
Yeah, because we are always waiting for a stronger boss to appear. So that big gun is always going to be needed. So it's always a problem. This always happens. So it's like
Nemesis needs a big gun.
It's like the Magnum on Resident Evil 6, 5. For
we have liftoff. No, 100%. So Cardigan's touching on Soma again there. We kind of spoke on Soma right at the very beginning of the show as a recommendation for a horror game that could be played for someone that doesn't play horror games. Like, if someone was being introduced to horror games for the first time, you know, what would be a good starting point for them? Something maybe not too mechanically complex, not entirely jump scary, but with a good amount of kind of horror around the edges. And yeah, Soma is not just a great version of that, but is also just a fantastic game on itself.
Do you think? Just a question for you, Gary.
Go for it.
Do you think Soma would be as popular as it is if it wasn't made by fictional games?
So you see, on the one hand,
imagine it's the same game, exactly the same game, but not made by fictional, because it's not a game that you can stream or go on YouTube. It's kind of boring to see.
Yeah,
but it's great. Do you think it's a game that would be as successful as it is if it was not made by fictional?
That's an interesting question, because a lot of games do carry that kind of clout with them. You kind of see it, and you guys in particular, will probably see it an awful lot where, a trailer or an announcement will come out, or a kind of reveal, even if there's absolutely nothing, like a company will release here we go, here's a image of a logo, and this game's coming out in like 6 years, and we're just announcing that we've thought about maybe making it, right? Like you reach that kind of point, and the comments will be absolutely swamped with people going, "Wait, these guys are making it? Yep, day one," and you're like, you know nothing about this. Like you don't even. This could be a box management simulator. Like, oh my, really? You're excited? You don't, the games do carry a lot of clout in them, and especially working in the industry as we do, you kind of see a lot of that in there. For me personally, I hadn't actually played any of their games before when I played Soma. It was completely... I actually, in a lot of ways, that I know a lot of you folks will probably have discovered games of your... I actually received it in a Humble Bundle, I think. Like, literally just randomly received it in a Humble Bundle. And I was like, well, I guess I'll install this thing. Like, whatever, I'll play it. And just ended up really, really loving the heck out of it. But for the general everyone, like, yeah, I definitely think that fictional making it definitely carried a lot of weight in there. Because, like you say, it kind of lacks a lot of what makes something super exciting to watch, especially from a spectator point of view, right? Like, you're not going to get a lot of people coming to watch competitive Soma. There's not, there's no esports Soma. Like, although maybe there should be. I don't know. Maybe we need to reach out and organize a quarantined esports Soma league. Maybe that's something that we're missing out on. But no, that's an interesting question for sure. So while we're looking at this, people in the chat were talking about things they find scary that maybe are not necessarily intended to be scary. Do either of you have any examples of this, you two? Is there anything that you can think of that is immediately like, oh my god, F this thing, I want nothing to do with it, I'm out, like just get it away from me, but it's something, I'm just looking around my room here to find this thing, like a travel lock for putting on your suitcases when you fly, right? Maybe someone's got just a complete and utter gut-wrenching fear of travel locks, like anything along that nature. That's a bit of an extreme example. A creeper jumping on you in the night is much scarier than a travel lock, and I want to make that clear, but...
Yeah. Travel lock, let me see.
Well, now I'm afraid of sneezing people, but...
At the moment, things that are scary, being less than 2 meters away from another human being, and any, you know that saying where they're like, you're never more than 5 meters away from a rat, and some people are kind of weirded out by that. Like, oh my god, there could be a rat near me right now. Jesus, you were never more than 5 meters from another human, and people right now are like, oh Jesus Christ, with good reason. Like, let's not make too light of the current situation. Like, it's being taken seriously for a very good reason. But no, human contact at the moment definitely exists on that list.
I can imagine something horrifying.
Okay, let's
being in quarantine without the internet. Imagine that.
Yeah, no, okay, yeah, that's
no Netflix, no nothing.
Yeah, that would be, I think I've got like 7 or 8 books here. That would probably last me a while. I'm a very slow reader. But I would definitely need that. So one of mine, I'll kind of give you all a moment to think on it, but one of mine, this is gonna sound so stupid. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm sharing this. Right, so is anyone familiar with Watership Down?
Watership
Down.
No.
Okay, so it's I think Harrison is the old film. So the idea is it's this old. It was so Ricardo Bruno. It was from back in the time when things were made for children that were like definitely far too adult for children, right? Like there's no way they would appear on children's TV for now. But the idea is it's about a load of rabbits that are seeking out this fictional or potentially fictional location for them to move to and start a new life, and they have wars with other rabbits and fight with dogs and all this kind of stuff. And it's actually really horrifying and incredibly gory. But that's not what scared me in the film. So it turns out that there is a rabbit god. Of course, there is a rabbit god, and it gets its own musical interlude, which is amazing. The soundtrack to the film, the song that was used was "Bright Eyes" by I can't remember who did it now. Someone find out for me who sang Bright Eyes for Watership Down. But there's scenes in this film where this rabbit god is like shown as a ghost, and I'm going to be very, very bad at describing why it's scary, but the best thing I can say is that it is so pointy. It's done in a very stylized way. Its ears are really pointy. Art Garfunkel, thank you, Cardigan. Yes, Art Garfunkel, thank you. But its ears are like literal, like pointy, and its chin is so pointy, and there's no detail. It's all just a black like silhouette. And the whole thing is very, like, low style, and there is just something about it that I saw it, and younger me was just like, nope, like, like, you know, big evil rabbit being torn apart by dogs, yep, I could watch that. I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine, but slightly pointy, stylized rabbit just freaked me out. And it still makes me really uncomfortable to this day. Still to this day, if I catch it on TV, I'm like, no, get them. Like, nope, I'm out. So anyway, that's me. Bright Eyes, Rabbit God. I'm looking very much forward to a few of those appearing around the office now. That's probably going to be a thing. The sacrifices
we could have put some rabbits in Those Who Remain.
No. You know what, guys? Development has stopped on this. No, I'm joking. Please don't put rabbits in Those Who Remain. Don't. I'm already unhappy enough about the spiders in there. I'm already unhappy. So let's turn it up. By the way, I'm super happy to see a lot of Watership Down appreciation and knowledge in the chat there, because honestly, still as kind of embarrassed as I was to talk about that, you know, that would have been a lot harder pitch to people if no one had any idea what I was talking about. Right? I'm actually going to have a look and see if I can find this and put it in the chat for you right now. Watership Down rabbit. No, well, there's like 70 rabbits in that film. What's it called again? Lord Frith. There we go. That was it. Lord Frith was its name. Yes. Google Lord Frith. Lord Frith. Yeah. And it's this kind of... Oh, goddamn.
The rabbit cat.
This is terrible content for y'all right now, but it is actually a terrifying thing, and I need to find an image to justify my fear.
There's some weird tattoos if I search Lord Frith in images.
Oh, hold on. Let me throw this up on the screen for you all.
It's probably the cult of Lord Frith.
Yes, some kind of sun kind of tattoo.
Let me just drag this over the one of your beautiful faces, just so that people are able to see. exactly what we're talking about here.
It's a rabbit with six arms and 2 legs.
No. That's God knows what that is. What have you found? You found a Cthulhu rabbit.
I don't know what this is, but
we didn't even know it was a thing. We didn't even know it was a thing. Open it.
Lord Frith.
Oh my god. Oh, there we go. There we go. Again, if you look on the stream now, YouTube, you'll see it. But it sounds so stupid, right? It sounds incredibly stupid that was the scary thing. But it actually was. It was genuinely terrifying. Oh wait,
I'm gonna put this tattoo on Discord, Gary.
Yep, do it.
So you can see what I'm talking about.
No.
Check on the.
We have gone off the. No, that is definitely not. That is definitely not it. What? Someone is taking some very liberal interpretations of that thing. Holy hell. Anyway, you know what? We'll find it up after the show. I'll put a slate at the end of the stream or something like that for everyone to see. Let's move away from Lord Frith because it's creeping me out thinking about it. So let's catch up in the chat right here. Lord Frith, Bright Eyes, Art Garfunkel. His hair was kind of scary at times, I guess. The baby-faced sun in Teletubbies, or the pink dancing elephants in Dumbo. That's a weird kind of fear. That's a strange kind of fear.
Pink elephants, yeah.
But you know, there's no shame in that. So some people do find kind of abject fear in that kind of almost misplaced innocence, right? Like this kind of, there's something that's normally childlike and kind of carefree, and something that is normally, in its usual setting, is something that can, you know, be perfectly normal and a positive thing, but, you know, in a certain situation, such as in the middle of a horror film or gamer environment, you know, a rocking horse playing a musical tune at the end of a corridor all of a sudden becomes a completely different prospect, right? Or, you know, these kind of things. Sorry, Kiko. Yeah, the bot decided to do something awful. We still need to rein that bot in. I need to add that onto my list while I'm here, is to get that in there. Mr. Blobby. Mr. Blobby. Did you guys have Mr. Blobby? Are you two familiar with Mr. Blobby?
Mr. Blobby? Who is
Mr. Blobby? I have no idea what it is.
It was a TV. It was part of it. It was a character on a TV show over here, and it was. Looking at Ricardo's face, I think he's seen it.
Yeah,
I think he's seen it.
I'm looking at it. It's very disturbing. It is.
Yeah, and it had to.
Oh, okay, I've seen it.
Yeah, but this thing was shown at like 5 p.m. in the evening at the end of the week in the UK, and it was like this big TV show that everyone would sit down, and it was basically a mascot. It was kind of like a evening going into the weekend TV show where people would come on and it'd be interviews and fun things and games, and this horrible giant pink blob would come running on, and people would kind of laugh and be so happy, but its voice was also genuinely terrifying. It had this kind of really distorted, modulated, do I really dare do a Mr. Blobby accent? All he could say was Blobby, by the way, so that's all
supposed to be for kids, right?
I think it was just a family TV show. It wasn't really pitched at anyone in particular. It was just this kind of, hey, it's 5 p.m., come around with the family and watch this. But the voice was this horrible, modulated, like, kind of thing, you know. And, like, imagine Yoda, but kind of turned up to, like, 5,000. Yoda turned up to 5,000 decibels and with, like, the world's worst modulated compression on it. And it was kind of, you're kind of somewhat there. I'll send you some videos after the stream. Yeah, I don't know. You can dabble on them.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. It's kind of the worst. It's kind of the worst. And I'd forgotten about Mr. Blobby. So y'all have done me a dirty right here. So let's just take a second. We're talking about this kind of you know, primal kind of random fears that people have, be it travel locks, be it black rabbits, be it Mr. Blobby. People's fears can kind of come from anywhere, not even the kind of, you know, completely random ones. You know, you get people that are like afraid of baked beans, and stuff, right? Like when people have like weird phobias, where they're like, "Oh, if I put a bean in my mouth, and they kind of lose it."
And there's like a phobia for holes. You know that one?
Oh,
phobia for what?
Holes.
Holes. Is that the lassophobia?
Being stuck in a hole?
Lassophobia.
Is it lassophobia?
I think that's the name. Yeah. So if a person looks at a hole or a surface that has holes, it creeps the person out. It's
like someone looking at so looking at a sponge would be like the worst thing that could ever happen, because there's just a billion holes everywhere inside something.
Trypophobia. Okay.
Trypophobia. Got you. Not lassophobia. Trypophobia. Thank you, Warren.
Trypophobia. Exactly, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's just anything that is a surface.
The fear a duck is watching you, that's a phobia too?
Yeah, that's a phobia. I can't remember what it is, but there is a phobia for it. But so fears can come from anywhere. Some of them are a little more understandable than others. When it comes to designing a video game, obviously you've kind of got a budget, and I don't mean monetary budget. I mean you've got to kind of pick and choose your battles, right? Especially when it comes to something like a horror game. So for you two, I'd be interested to know was there ever a time when you sat down putting the game together? What was kind of the approach to, hey, what are we going to put in here? Like what phobias are we going to touch on? Kind of, was it a conscious decision? Like, you got the big spiders in there. I'm going to keep being upset about that. Just saying. But what was that oh god, we've got to put the spiders in there, and we've got to put this in there, or was it just kind of your own kind of personal feels that you kind of played off for it?
Well, so
I hate spiders. I really can't stand them.
Oh no.
So I think the spiders, it was actually my idea. I think I'm not sure anymore.
Like, you know what? I really hate spiders. Okay, go build some spiders. Damn it!
And the main concept of the game, the darkness that kills, that was like the basic idea. Because it appeals to a very primal fear of the dark, right? We don't know who's there, who's watching. And then we had the idea of creating...
It could be a duck.
Could be a duck. Yeah. There could be a duck in the darkness watching you.
It's not the sequel. It's the sequel. And then we had the idea of placing these kind of creatures in the dark, but we thought that it would be scary if they looked like people, but if they weren't really people. It all started there, and then Bruno added the spiders and other creatures.
God damn it, Bruno. So
follow the spiders.
Follow the spiders. So I think that's quite an interesting thing you touched on there. The kind of nature of the darkness as pretty much like the base primal fear. I mean, a lot of people kind of can get caught up on specifics. I know people that just aren't bothered by spiders in the slightest, and I honestly don't even really count them as people, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not humanly possible.
That's a very small group.
It's a very small group. But there would be people that would play through and just not be bothered by spiders in the slightest. But the darkness is kind of, even if you're not afraid of the dark, the nature of something being in the dark, even unspecified, is something that is kind of terrifying in its own nature. Like the human mind is And it is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It is also just the biggest self-sabotaging piece of in the world. Like if you walk past something and it's completely pitch black and you hear a noise, your imagination. Your imagination will run wild, and it will go to the worst thing that I can think of immediately. Well, like, without a doubt. You're never like, oh, I really hope that's somebody coming to give me some candy floss. You're like, no, it's a killer clown. It's a killer clown. I heard a noise. It's totally a killer clown. So that's actually really smart. Well, like, as far as a base kind of fear to play off, because, you know, you don't even need to abide by the show don't tell rule. You don't even need to show. You just need to kind of gently suggest, right? Like that's kind of you just kind of give an impression that maybe it's not a good idea to be in there, and all of a sudden everything goes haywire. So
yeah, I remember some time ago, around a year ago or so, I went to kind of an immersive horror experience.
Okay.
So it was a different thing. You got like a pair of headphones and you walked through a house.
Okay.
And the house was very dark. It had like a few lights. But and the headphones they had like a strange buzz.
Oh.
It was very weird. But I remember at some point I was like in the corner, and in my mind I was like, is that someone moving there? Am I seeing a shadow or not? There were like a few people dressed as ghosts there that appeared sometimes.
Yeah.
But in there the mind was really active, playing all kinds of tricks on me, and it was on a real situation. So
yeah,
it's the same everywhere.
You know, just to kind of tangent off for a second, that's something that honestly I've always kind of wondered. I don't know if any of you, I mean, you know, we're all alive in 2020 and we're all seeing things on social media, so you've probably seen this stuff. But you know, you'll find like random prank videos where someone set up a hidden camera and, like, you know, somebody will be getting ready or putting makeup on or having something to eat, and then someone will, like, run in the room with an axe, or in a couple of instances I've seen, like, you know, crawled out of a cupboard, imitating one of the kind of Japanese horror, long-haired, kind of scary girls. And they're kind of filming the reactions for these people, like screaming and running away and trying to get out and kind of just turning into these sobbing piles in the corner. And they're like, haha, isn't it funny scaring people? And I've always thought, like, I wonder if that's ever gone wrong. You know? Like, what if this poor girl's, like, crawled out of a cupboard to scare someone, and someone has just gone fight or flight, okay, fight, and just picked up a chair and just wailed on him, right? Like, because it's kind of like, you know, oh my god, I can't imagine. I mean, maybe it's one of those things that, you know, the percentage of people when they're put in that position, you don't know until you are in that position, right? But I'd like to think that if I was sat going about my business, if someone runs into this room right now with a baseball bat covered in blood, I'd probably pick up everything in the nearest thing and just start throwing it. I'd at least make an effort. You know, I wouldn't just sit and cry. I've always thought that stuff was so risky. like, so risky. Let's have a look. Actually, people checking this actually happened. Keith says...
Yeah, it can go wrong.
I saw one of them backfire majorly. The guy got beaten the heck out of by the person he was trying to scare. Regularly got... yeah, okay, so it must go wrong quite often then. Okay. Apologies, there's a motorbike passing.
Sound is also very important. Sound is also very important in disturbing our mind. It's coming to mind a French movie, which is about the movie itself is disturbing, but it's about a woman that she's raped in the movie.
Okay. Irreversible.
But my point is that the sound in the movie,
yeah,
it has a low frequency sound all the time, that's very similar to earthquake sound, I believe.
Right, so it's just this constant
And
underlying...
since you start the movie, your mind is being disturbed with that sound, but it's not really something that you can pinpoint that's the sound. It's
No.
just there.
That's
And
so
if
smart.
I recall correctly, half of the people that start seeing the movie just leave the theater.
Wow.
Yeah, they got sick. They got sick because of the
sound or something.
Of that
Oh
noise,
wow!
yeah.
So you know, it wasn't like a full-on kind of, you know. But we're going to get immature here for a second. I do apologize, but it's not like a full-on like brown note or anything like that. But it's just a noise constantly making you feel uncomfortable, and you just don't know why.
It's
I'm not
not
sure
that. And
I'm
the
not sure
movie,
that's the best thing to do in entertainment, but
no, and
the point.
the movie is very graphical.
Yeah. So it kind of
very
hits you from every direction, basically.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
not just a visual assault, but like an audio one. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
I don't remember the name of the movie. Which one is it?
Irreversible.
Irreversible. Okay.
With Monica
Irreversible.
Bellucci and I don't remember the guy's
I'll
name.
have to put it on the list for the next
Good
time.
memory.
I just never want to sleep. We've got wonderful Zobi.
Hello,
In
Zobi.
the chat, Zobi saying 3 of my
Hello.
favorite people in one place. I think she's talking about you, chat. I think Zobi's talking about you guys. Honestly, I feel like after PAX, she was very, very much done with our shiz, as the family friendly version of that phrase would go. Good to see you, Zobi. Hope you are keeping well. Hope you're doing absolutely amazing. So, audio.
Well, I've done a very nice prank with audio.
Okay, let's hear your audio prank. Let's hear what
So-
happens when Ricardo has a little too much time on his hands and decides to.
There was once where my girlfriend was home and I left, but I left my computer on with the speakers high. So I was in the gym and I had my laptop, and I made the.
You took your laptop to the gym?
No, it's a long story.
I was about to say, you just gotta set it up on the treadmill. You're like,
No,
okay,
it's
gotta keep this RuneScape gold coming in. I've just got
it's a long story, but to cut it short, so I connected remotely to my computer at home, and I played a very large scream. So she was home alone, and the scream just came out of.
Lord. You
evil.
You absolute evil. Why are you? So sorry, you did say ex-girlfriend here, right? Oh my word! Okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting. She called me the next second. It's you, right?
Wow, so she immediately knew. She was like, you know what, this is... She immediately was up on your game. She immediately knew. She was done with your shiz. That's fantastic. That's amazing. So, while we're talking about the door knocking prank, yeah, I was about to say, so this is something that you two might not be too familiar with. But, oh my lord, there was this noise that someone made. It was a sound file that was basically just a really well cut and edited sound of a door knocking to basically sound how you would expect a door to knock if you were wearing headphones. Right? So it wasn't just a straight door knocking noise, it was a hint of a door knocking noise that just sounded so... Oh god, it was so darn on point. Well, I'll have to drum it up and send it to you. But yet it went around on Twitch for a while because a lot of streams would run song requests or audio requests. You know, people could queue it up and kind of go whatever. But the number of people that would request the YouTube link to this video of this particular sound while people were playing horror games, and you'd get people creeping around at like super intense moments, like really on edge, and then all of a sudden you'd be like bang, 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 and they would just lose themselves immediately. Like oh my, I do remember that, Keek. It went around for quite a while, and nothing was safe. It was such a strange thing that just became became a thing. But let me see if I can find it for you. Hold up, because it was so. I'll play it for the chat. Just here we go. Get this for the chat.
No, don't do it.
And it would kind of flip between like left and right audio and so on and so forth, and there were different variations of it too, like getting some of them louder, some of them quieter than others, but the net effect was that it always sounded like you would expect it to sound if you were wearing headphones. So it wasn't a direct, bang, bang, bang. Now you'd be like, oh, this is immediately so loud that I can tell this has been queued up. Like, it was always just quiet enough that it would kind of mess with you. It was the worst. It was the worst. I know some VR shows that said that knock door. No. Why would you implement VR on that? Why would you also go, you know what? I just need to completely immerse myself in that. So, just going back onto the darkness for a second, you've got a glass door. Oh, Harrison's got the hacks. Harrison's got his way around it. Harrison's like...
He's a hard one.
Okay, so now, basically, chat, we've had a gauntlet thrown down where we need to basically make a version of that specifically for glass doors, just for Harrison. You've done it, Harrison. You put it out there. The internet will make it happen. Congratulations. You played yourself. But
probably. It's still look at the door.
so one of the things with those who remain specifically, we've kind of touched on the shadow figures that are a constant threat throughout the course of the game. They are your your main obstacle in a lot of ways. If nothing else, a constant kind of oppressive reminder that you are under watch and kind of restricting your movement and options. Does anyone remember, and I'm saying this out here, but we're going to delve into the world of film for a second, 28 Days Later?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 28 Days Later. Yeah, I'm guessing you two.
I've been hearing the soundtrack lately. I don't know why.
The In a House in a Heartbeat track. Yeah.
In a Heartbeat, right?
Yeah. The In a House in a Heartbeat. Annoyingly, I'm not going to be able to play that because I can't just play without royalties and so on and so forth, though I wish that I could, because it is a fantastic piece of music, one of the most disturbing, strongest pieces of music,
and it's been on my mind for the last weeks.
Yeah, it's the right time for it, right? But 20 days later, for those in the chat that may not be familiar, it's a zombie film, but it's a very, very dry zombie film. It's played very, very straight. It's very not glamorized in a lot of zombie ways that a lot of films are. It's not like a grindhouse film. The color palette is very muted. The locations are very stripped back, and kind of it's farm yards and kind of stuff like that. It's not your kind of usual Hollywood zombie film at all. But their take on the zombies is that it's actually an infection called the rage infection, if I'm not mistaken. That's transferred through blood? I think it's blood, because I know that guy gets infected from a bird, doesn't he?
I think it's blood or
I think
two.
it's
I
blood.
think.
Hold on, a little bit of lag there for a second. I do apologize, but there is a scene in the film towards the back third where the survivors end up under the care of some military personnel, and they have one of their team is infected, and they have him chained up out back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know the guy I'm on about? They have him chained up out back. And there's just this amazing shot where it comes out of nowhere, because it's not being built up to in the slightest. It's not like there's the usual kind of building up of tension and escalation or anything like that. But his eyes are reddened by this virus, and they're in the kitchen just having this most mundane discussion between themselves, disagreeing about something, and the camera just cuts to this shot of having this kitchen window in view, and you just see these piercing red eyes just staring through the window, and oh my word, and it just holds on it for a second. For literally a second, long enough for you to, like, you take the shot in, you're kind of looking at everything, you're still listening to the people talking, and if you're paying attention and you've got wandering eyes, you might kind of spot the eyes and kind of make note of them and go, wait, what's that? And then everything goes to hell. But, you know, those Remain plays an awful lot in that same kind of card, right? It's those, you know, okay, the eyes are blue, not red, but that's there are still several moments in the game where you will be, you'll be moving through an area and you'll come across something, and next thing you know, you've got like a sea of just these piercing eyes, just kind of glaring at you and kind of staring at you, and you just, yeah, it's a really uncomfortable feeling. It's a really horrible, uncomfortable feeling, even if it's not something directly attacking you or directly assaulting you. Just the presence of it is enough to be really, really distressing in like a super bad way. In a super bad way. I really like those films. I really like the 28 Days series, and I know the sequel kind of didn't get as much love as
but still,
it was still a really great entry.
It was, and the beginning of the movie, that part with the father.
In the house. Oh my god! Oh my god! Just the most gut wrenching, like
Yeah, because basically he couldn't do anything. He couldn't save her.
Yeah.
Yet he decided to run away.
You want to talk, and look, if we're talking a horror, we're talking zombies. Like we have to pay some lip service to The Walking Dead. Even though, from my personal preference here, I definitely did walk away from the TV show after they iced. I'm a big fan of God, I'm that guy. I just caught myself. I'm a big fan of the graphic novels. I'm that guy. After they iced my favorite character, who at that point in the novels was still like way far in the novels, was like still alive and kicking and doing real badass stuff, and in the series they like killed them off in a really stupid way, super early on for just a cheap shock, really. And I was like, well, I guess I don't need to watch The Walking Dead anymore. But still, you know, one of the strongest, the pilot episode for Walking Dead is still one of the strongest, like, on its own, like, aside of everything, was just one of the strongest, episodes of anything ever, really. Like to introduce people to that world, the way they showed it, the way they handled the horror, the kind of realistic take on the kind of zombie genre was so good. So good. But, you know, we talk The Walking Dead there, but that opening scene in 28 Days Later in the house is probably as harrowing and down to earth and realistic as oh my god, like this, if this happened, that would be a situation people would have. And that's an awful situation, because they're not the ones that you think of, right? You think of the grand ones, like, oh, how are we going to run a colony, or how are we going to save this cure, or how are we going to get through this field of zombies? It's not, how am I going to save my family when we're trapped in a bedroom 3 stories up in a building, and am I going to have to make a call to jump out of a window and say, oh God, sorry, bye. But that's, that's still just a horrifyingly low stakes but awful take on it.
Yeah, because it's very cool to imagine that in a zombie we'd all be the cool fighters with swords and guns and just kicking ass.
We wouldn't. I want every one of you to look at yourselves right now. Let's just do a fun thought experiment. My God, my words are so bad today. Let's do a fun thought experiment. Zombie apocalypse kicks off right now. How long do you individually? And I'm not talking about I'm going to go hang out with my buddy who works in the army. I want about as an individual, how long do you give yourself? Realistically, like look yourself up and down right now. How long do you give yourself in a zombie apocalypse situation? Harrison says 5 minutes.
Yeah, that would be me too. 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Probably a few days. I think that the people that would last longer would be the horrible people, the guys that wouldn't care about the family, the friends, that would do everything for themselves.
Yeah,
these would be the people that would last longer. Everyone that would be worried with family or friends, I don't think I could last long.
No.
Also depends how much food you have in your place.
Yeah, like if I'm looking right now. Assuming that if we're going to go on the assumption that it starts kind of nearby and no one in this house is directly involved and I can just like lock everything up and be super quiet and just live off the food I have here, like maybe a week. Maybe. That's assuming nothing gets in. That's assuming I don't need to go anywhere and do anything. That's assuming no one does anything stupid. But I think you're kind of right on that. It's kind of a running theme in a lot of horror films and games as well. And not even necessarily restricted to horror. You kind of see this. You see this kind of running commentary in like the Fallout games and so on and so forth in their kind of post-apocalyptic situation is that, people are like, we're in a bad situation and only the brutal and horrible can thrive in this environment. And that's kind of a running theme in horror and kind of post-apocalyptic in general, right? Is this kind of, do you commit to this? Well, I guess I'm just gonna, break and steal and murder my way and kind of get mine. Or am I going to try and convince and show people that, beyond that, there is a way to kind of not commit that level of kind of atrocity and still survive. But no, I do think you're right on that. The kind of the strong, morally challenged would probably survive for quite a while in that kind of
also it would depend how fast the government would respond to
that's true. Well,
to an outbreak like that. We can see how the responses have been with coronavirus.
I was about to say, as far as a test
bed, we can imagine how would it be with the zombie outbreak.
Yeah, but as a test bed for responses to global pandemics, governments have been. We'll not make any sweeping generalizations here. I'm sure that there have been some not mentioned because you've not heard of it, because they've done such a good job. But I'm sure that it's not been the greatest of responses from a lot. Kiko says it depends on when the zombies thing starts. I'd hate to be spawn killed. Yeah, that would kind of suck. And it's very much akin. I often think sometimes about how annoyed the very last person to die in a war must be. You know, like the guy at the end of a war where when, like, you know, peace treaties are signed and they're like, okay guys, like Second World War, like war's over, we're done, we're packing it up. Like the guy, like 2 seconds before that announcement is put out there, and I was just like, whoa, really? like really? Like, you could have done this like 20 seconds ago, like. Oh, I climbed out of this trench. If you'd have told me to wait a second, I wouldn't have done it. Like,
actually, there were soldiers that were killed way after the.
Oh, I can imagine.
The information didn't get there as fast as today.
You did hear as well, didn't you? There were those kind of insane sounding things where people were kind of like coming out of like jungles like decades later, still convinced that there was a war going on, and they're kind of walking out like, okay, we're in hostile territory, and everyone's like, hey, do you want a donut? what you doing here, buddy? Like, this stopped a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe there was a Japanese soldier on some island on the.
I think we're referring on the same one there.
Probably he was found on the 70s or on the 80s or something like that, and he didn't know the war was over.
Just before we carry up on that, Orbital Animator, hello, welcome to our little show. We are talking with the fantastic crowd here, and we've got Ricardo right in the middle. We got Bruno right on the far end there, and myself. I work for Wide Productions, so our little stream setup here, and these two guys are the fantastic developers from Camel101 of Those Who Remain. We are basically just sitting down. We had a stream up a couple of weeks ago discussing the game and kind of going through some of the early stages. But right now we're just kind of hanging out with the folks, and you know, we're just talking about horror games, horror films, things that we're afraid of. The fear that a duck is watching you is something that we weren't expecting. You're really happy with that, aren't you, Bruno? That's really tickling me.
There are a lot of ducks, and we have a lake here, and there's hundreds of ducks in the lake. So I see them. Well, I used to see them. Now I don't, but they are around.
Do you think?
And I can't imagine someone being afraid of ducks, but yeah, I guess.
Do you think ducks have a corresponding fear of like the fear that a person is watching them?
They do move away when we get close to them.
We do. So what we need is a duck that's afraid of people watching them, and a person that's afraid of ducks watching them, and just put them into a room together, and just set up a camera and just watch what happens. Which one will break first? The person or the duck? Which one will break first? Definitely the person. I think the duck would probably be nonplussed, to be honest. Kiko says, if zombies are just slow and make loud noises, we'll be fine. But if they have super zombies, like Mr. X style, I think we have a problem. Yeah. Definitely the kind of, you know, we touched on at the start that there was a lot of flavor of different horror. And that's even within zombies as a whole, right? Like zombies as an aesthetic and as a genre. You've got your kind of grindhouse, super speedy. Well, not even super speedy. They're the kind of like slow, shambling, moving hordes, one to the head'll do 'em kind of jobs. And then you've got the kind of rage zombies, which are super quick, or you've got things like World War Z, which was a interesting take on. Was it a take on the book, or did it just share the title?
They just used the title.
Because I've read the book.
Very different.
The book was very, very different. They just shared the title, because I remember being quite excited to hear that there was I was like, well, it's more of an informational book, but I'd be intrigued to see what they do for a film. And that film did not come anything like the contents of that book in the slightest, but, you know, they basically made an ocean of zombies, which is an interesting concept. But Carligan jumps in and says, the question is, who will tell the last person that he or her was the last person if he... You just broke my brain, Cardigan. Hold up, I need to read this again. Who will tell the last person that he/her was the last person if he/she was the last person? That's a good point. I guess you wouldn't know. I guess, yeah, okay, you wouldn't know. You'd be too dead to worry about it. But but it's the principle. it's the concept of the matter. Okay, so can airsoft rifles kill zombies? I own a pair. You know what? I don't think they can. Has anyone ever killed a zombie with an air rifle in a film or a game or anything that we're aware of?
Well, there's that game, I don't remember the name, where you can use all sorts of objects to kill zombies.
Which one?
I don't remember the name. A zombie game where the players stuck in the mall.
Oh, Dead Rising.
Dead Rising.
Dead
Okay.
Rising. Yes, Frank West. Yes.
You can use all sorts of objects to kill zombies. So maybe
He's covered
an
walls,
airsoft.
you know. To play on that meme, goddamn. Well, what a
It's
series.
the Rising one, I think. Yeah, that was a while ago. There's
Yeah.
World War Z was a good game too. I heard. Wasn't that a almost Left 4 Dead-ish PlayStation exclusive? I think I'm kind of doing. I haven't owned a console for a couple of years now, so my console knowledge of games are only on there is a little limited. But wasn't it
World War Z. I think it's exclusive to Epic Store. I think
right. That'll be why I haven't heard on it elsewhere. Gotcha.
that's why I haven't. Yeah.
Keek says the poor puppets. Oh, I Am Legend, Zobi. Now, I Am Legend. What a right. So
That's a great movie.
yeah. You know, I look back on I Am Legend a lot more favorably than I think I did at the time when I saw it.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I loved a lot of the movie. I think the ending really didn't sell me on, because so the base material for I Am Legend is basically Omega Man, right? The book. And do we have spoilers? Is anyone going to be mad about a Omega Man spoiler? Anybody?
I'm okay. I don't know what
We'll give it 20 seconds in the chat just in case anybody. It's been more than 5 years. It has been, but just want to be sure. No, we don't want to ruin people's potential experience. But the idea is that in the Omega Man, the original short story, you kind of get to the end of it, and the main character is basically doing what you see in I Am Legend. He's going out, he's kidnapping subjects, he's testing them, he's kind of killing them, and kind of trying to survive during the day where they can't go out. And at night time, he's kind of holding up and then doing a thing. And the kind of ending in the original short story is that eventually it comes to light that like they're not really infected. It's not like there's a virus. It's not really like there's anything heinous happening. It was just a super real quick like evolution, where humanity has just now moved into this next thing. And outside of what he sees, where he goes out and he hunts them and he kidnaps them and he tests them, you know, they have basically their own society and their own practices, and they have their own kind of civilization almost. And to them, he has become this boogeyman, this kind of awful entity that they kind of scare their children with, where he's kind of, you know, if you're not careful, he's going to come and take you in the night, and he's going to go and do all of these things, and then they kind of capture him, and he has this kind of awful revelation that he is kind of like this horrifying presence to these things.
That's your take from the movie, or that's from the book?
No, that was from the book. And he gets executed. Where they're like, yo, you've done like awful stuff to us. Like you were an awful thing. You've literally made our lives a living hell and been a complete terror on everything. And he's like, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe I deserve this. Yeah, maybe I deserve this. Okay, cool. And he gets executed, which is a pretty strong ending to a piece of material. The ending to I Am Legend was, I feel, focus tested really hard. That's the general feeling I get. I get the feeling that got kind of happy ending Hollywooded super hard.
The only thing that I didn't enjoy that much was the strong CGI look of the zombies.
Yeah.
They were very CGI-ish.
They were. You know, and that's something that kind of definitely. I feel like we might just be coming out the other side of it now, maybe. Where like everything is kind of being treated with a little bit more care as far as just like animating everything on CGI and letting it run. Because there was a weird period for a while where everything just had that weird kind of plasticine CGI look, right? And
it looked like a game.
Awful. I mean, let's just take a look here. We've got a fine example on the wall behind you there, Ricardo. If we're going to move into,
you just read my mind. I will just
we can kind of see. You see, this is why we work so well together. This is why. This is why I'm super stoked to be working with you guys. But we have this this fine piece of art up on the wall there of the Thing, which, though a very dated film nowadays,
1982.
1982. There was a recent-ish prequel. Was it?
Full of CGI.
Which was and that was kind of a big bad no for a lot of people leading up to its launch, and for a very specific reason. So, if you have not seen The Thing, first of all, prepare your stomachs. Second of all, it is such a strange film because there were other films at the time, or that came out after, that definitely used a similar amount of practical effects, especially in a kind of gory manner. If we look at things like Total Recall and so on and so forth, even though there wasn't a horror film, but you look at things like the head exploding and stuff like that on Mars and stuff, which was obviously a super practical effect. But The Thing uses... did they use any CGI on the original? I don't think that was even a thing then, was it?
No, I don't think there was any CGI on the original.
Yeah, and it is some of the worst nightmare fuel. And it's a really interesting thing because, honestly, aesthetically... And I'm going to say this as someone that loves The Thing. I absolutely adore that film with every ounce of my heart. I even enjoyed the video game, the PS2 video game came out on PS2 and PC.
Yeah.
Did you ever play it, Bruno?
Which one?
The Thing. The video game that they made of it.
The game?
Yeah.
I haven't played it.
You should. It's honestly, I feel like it was a game that suffered a lot from scope issues than anything else. Like it was kind of held together by Blue Tack. But the idea was that you were a squad that was sent to the Arctic installation after the fact to go and basically clean up. And you had to. It had so many different mechanics. You had like trust mechanics with your squad, and you'd have to keep them healed, and give them guns and health, and squad members could get infected and could turn on you, and you had to manage your heat and being outside in the cold. It was kind of detrimental. Yeah, and it was at its heart, it was a third-person shooter. But it just had an awful lot of mechanics stacked on top of it that, I feel like a game of that nature could get made really, really well now. But early PS2, I feel like it kind of buckled under the weight of its own kind of expectations in it. But I enjoyed it. As a fan of The Thing, I enjoyed it. But regardless, I say this as someone that adores The Thing. I love the film to death. I even enjoyed the game. But aesthetically and horror-wise, visually, The Thing is kind of dumb. And I don't mean dumb as in stupid. I mean it's very basic. No. I don't mean dumb as in and stupid. I mean it's very basic. I
believe it's basic from the point of view of now. After you have 20 years of movies.
100%.
But at the time,
we're kind of looking at the first time. The first time people saw Alien in the cinema, right? And we're just kind of like, oh my god, like we can't. What the hell? Like, let's stop this. This is Satan. I'm sure it very much was at the time. That's actually something I didn't take into consideration. But from a what is horrifying about The Thing standpoint, it's literally like, let's just get every body part that we can, tear it in half, and then stick it back together. Which for modern day horror, it's kind of like, wow, you just kind of went for the gore thing, huh? But there's just something so visceral about everything being so stuck together and like practical effects, and everything is pipes and veins and fluids and like blood and vomit and bile
Yeah.
and things that are yellow, and you're like, are there yellow things in my body? I see a lot of yellow. Should there be yellow in there? I don't know. And it is just it's a shocking, like, still to this day, you know, you can kind of look at those effects and you're like, yo, I get it. Like, you know, you can kind of see that they are models and you can kind of see the moving parts, but they are still to this day, like, still awful to watch. It still looks good, and I will defy anyone, absolutely anyone, that does not jump at the blood testing scene. I have seen that film maybe 500 times. I still jump. I know it's coming. I know the exact second in the film playtime that it's coming. I still jump. Like, it's impossible not to.
The music. Do you know who did the music for the movie?
Wasn't it?
John Carpenter?
Wasn't it Carpenter?
I think it was.
Yeah, it's John Carpenter that did the music.
Yeah, John Carpenter doing it. Yeah. It was, oh goddamn, so okay, let's do a thing. Let's do a thing. So
let's do a thing.
I love asking this. The Thing. What's your take on the ending? Are either of them infected?
Well, there's the theory with the shine on the eyes. Following the theory, Childs should be infected and McCready should be human.
Yeah.
I think...
But either way, they're gonna die.
I mean,
not exactly. If Childs is the Thing, is not going to die. It's just going to...
It's just gonna freeze,
to freeze until someone else arrives.
I mean,
but
yeah.
I think they are both human.
You think they're both? I came across a theory that I absolutely love, which was that there was absolutely no whiskey available, and it had all been used for Molotovs and blah, 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 blah. So the only thing that could potentially be left at the end of the film is the gasoline. And that at the end, when McCready hands him a drink, and he drinks it, and kind of doesn't react, and then McCready kind of laughs. It's this kind of like, you just drank petrol, like you should be violently ill right now. Like, you shouldn't just be drinking, just go, put some hair on your chest. You know, like, this isn't a really neat little kind of, you know, winter top up. Like, you've just done something alien, and that was him kind of laughing and reacting to this. Okay, yeah, like I know kind of thing. And he didn't have frost breath. Yeah,
exactly.
the frost breath thing is something that gets touted out. Honestly, I think this is my favorite part of anything, be it games, be it films, be it whatever, is all of the kind of the theory crafting and the conspiracy theories after. To me, that's something that I absolutely adore. I could talk about this stuff for hours, honestly.
Yeah, it's like, and this is the sign of a good movie, right? The movie is from almost 40 years ago, and we're still trying to understand the ending, what happened. This is like a piece of art. It's not like just a straight thing where a guy with a machete just slaughters everyone and okay, everyone's dead.
Yeah. And then in 20 years, no one's going to be talking about the movie.
Yeah, or they might, but they're not exactly discussing theories.
Oh my god! So
yeah.
While we're on the subject of films, what is the film that has scared you the most? Maybe not your favorite horror film, but the film that has genuinely terrified you the absolute most. And we'll open that one up to the chat as well. We had a bit of a deep dive on zombie lore and the thing there. But let's take a second. What is the film that to this day you still have a hard time watching, horror-wise?
Well, a movie that I watched very young, I don't remember how old I was, but I was young, was The Shining.
Okay.
And
Jack Nicholson.
It creeped me out violently.
Understandable. Understandable. What about you, Bruno?
I'll go for a so where these people, I don't remember how, but they got shrink to letters, and they had to walk around the house trying to. And there was a guy with a.
Oh, hold on, Bruno. We're having a little bit of an internet moment. We're having a little bit of an internet moment. Please bear with me. Do you want to just repeat that, Bruno? Because Discord decided to do a Discord thing.
Yeah, it was the movie. I'm thinking about the movie I saw also as a kid, old movie, or like 4 or 5 people, they got shrink, and they had to walk around the house, running away from giant. The spiders were not giant, but they were big, and the guy had a toothpick. Spider.
Oh my god!
It was really old, and that really impressed me. But I was little, so. But
I can see how that would be horrifying, actually. It might not be a traditional horror, but I can definitely see how every insect being 50 times your size and giant toothpicks coming out would leave some impact.
Yeah,
okay, I think...
That's why I'm trying to prevent my kid to see horror movies.
I think we may be having, if you just bear with me one moment, ladies and gentlemen, fine folks, we may be just having a very slight internet moment with the Lord Bruno here. We'll just give it a moment to stabilize.
Okay.
Let's check it out. Looks alright now. Remote work, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing will stop us, but there'll be the occasional rough edge. Thank you for your patience.
It's all good.
Thank you for the patience.
So good. Okay.
It's real life.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but no modern movies. I don't have one now. I have a movie. I'm waiting to be on streaming. It's Underwater. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a horror movie about people underwater.
You know,
I'm trying not to read a lot about the movie. I want to go there.
Right. Oh, so you don't even know. You're just going in completely blind.
No, I just saw the trailer.
Got you. Okay.
It seems like it's an underwater base, and there's some kind of monsters too. It's probably going to be a cheap movie, but I still want to see it.
I don't know. I accidentally read a spoiler about it.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't tell him we can't host.
But it annoyed me, and on the other hand, it got me more excited because it addresses a subject that really interests me. I can't say more.
Okay, well, you know what? If you're gonna get a spoiler, at least it came out in a good way, right? At least it came out in the best way. Is it a sequel to a James Cameron film?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, it's not. It's not.
Prisoner of Azkaban, those freaking dementors. I've still not seen a Harry Potter film yet. I've still never seen a Harry Potter film. Oh,
Harry Potter?
Wreck. Wreck was a good film. Oh.
2 or 3 weeks. Wreck is very good.
Yeah,
Wreck is very good. Yeah.
Wreck is a very hard watch. Wreck is
I haven't seen the American remake. I saw the Spanish one.
Yeah, that's the one I've seen. Yeah, I've not seen the American one. I've seen the Spanish one, and the Spanish one was... Oh boy. Oh, that was...
That was at one point, yeah.
That was the thing. So, I just want to ask here, because I've got a bit of a guilty pleasure. And I acknowledge it's a bad film. Okay, I just want to put it out there. It is a bad film. But it is probably the best and most faithful video game film. And that is the first Silent Hill film.
Ah, okay. I thought you were going to say Resident Evil.
No. I mean, I like the Resident Evil movies for different reasons other than the director's girlfriend being in it, so he keeps making them. And Resident Evil movies for other reasons than Mila Jovovich, I always forget her name, backflipping zombies for like 6 hours, although that is entertaining. But no, the first Silent Hill film, Silent Hill is, we'll kind of cross bridges from film back to game here. For me, probably the happy medium between the games like Soma and Amnesia and the kind of more kind of walky, stripped down horror and the Resident Evil games. It's like this, it's got its gore, it's got its action, but even the action, 9 times out of 10, apart from the one Silent Hill game where they made you play a soldier, and that's why you could suplex zombies. In general, you're playing an everyman that doesn't have combat experience or the ability to handle weapons well, and resources aren't that big a thing. So while there is action in the games, it's light and it's clunky, and it's always not the best solution to whatever you're coming up against. I love the games, top to bottom. Yes, even The Room. God, I love The Room. The Room is such an interesting game. We'll talk about that. Yeah, it's such an interesting game. But the film, the first Silent Hill film, it had me sold from minute one, where they had this amazing shot right near the beginning where the main character enters Silent Hill for the first time, and she's kind of, or the normal version of Silent Hill, as it were. And she goes down this alleyway, down to the back of a bar. And as she's making her way down, the camera kind of pulls up way high over the alleyway and passes over this kind of obstacle fence and through a wall and drops down on the other side of it. And it was such a weird thing, but it is... For those that are familiar with the game, or maybe for those that may not have touched it for some time, like scene for scene, that camera movement is the direct movement that the game takes in the alleyway at the start of the beginning of the game. And I don't know, there was just something about seeing it replicated in a film, even though the film wasn't great. It kind of... They got to the end and then did this whole mass exposition dump of, hey, just in case you can't pick up subtext, let us just explain the entire film to you in a 10-minute dialogue sequence at the end, just in case anyone hasn't picked up anything so far. They kind of ruined the pacing of it. But there was something about seeing that kind of camera movement and kind of attention to detail to the actual game itself that was like, okay, this dude obviously gets it, like this dude obviously cares enough that he's willing to go through and make a super tight alleyway and then put it all on pulleys and then make it all move around and have the camera on an arm moving through it and having elements being brought in and pulled down and moved around, specifically to recreate a dodgy PS1 camera angle. It was like, you know what? Okay, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, film. You're not good, but I appreciate you nonetheless. Still. Silent Hill is based on a real place, says Harrison. It was, wasn't it? Can you remember the name? The name is eluding me now.
The first movie is good. I enjoyed it very much. The sequel, I fell asleep.
Oh no!
Really, I fell asleep and then I tried watching it again. It's a complete mess.
Yeah,
it's the sequel.
Was that the 3D one?
Yeah. It has like a few very well shot scenes, but as a whole, there's not
honestly,
much there.
I feel that the hardest part of what Silent Hill has as a series, not just in the films, but as a series, is they just kind of need to kill off Pyramid Head as a thing.
They killed it? I haven't seen the movie.
No. Well, they need to kill it off, like, as a thing. Because it's almost become this mascot, right? This kind of, there has to be Pyramid Head in it. Like, if there's a game, it's got to be in there. If there's a film, it's got to be in there.
You need to bring it back always, right?
Right, but But
Darth Vader.
That's Vader.
yeah, they're Darth Vader, right? Like it's a Star Wars, so there's got to be a Darth Vader in it or an analog to it. So, but the thing was like the thing that made Pyramid Head terrifying. I mean, yes, his appearance was terrifying. His presence was always terrifying, but it was a character that was created in Silent Hill 2 specifically for the protagonist James as a foil for his mental state, you know, specifically his repressed sexual anxieties that he was unable to enact on because his wife was in a diminishing state, right? Like, you know, that's why throughout the game it was forever being shown being sexually aggressive towards other creatures in the town. That's why it had this kind of, you know, you couldn't kill it in the way that you killed the other creatures in the game. Even when you slowed it down, it would always come back because it was, you know, that part of his psyche and that part of his mental state was still there. And, you know, it was a very unique to that protagonist and unique to that character creation. And seeing it in the film as an Easter egg would have maybe been acceptable. It becoming repurposed as this executioner of the town that just went around and killed ne'er-do-wells. You know, that bled back into the games. You know, if you look at later entries in the series, Pyramid Head basically gets turned into a judgmental executioner for anything. It doesn't matter what the context is. You know, if someone is in Silent Hill and they need to die, guess what? Pyramid Head is going to be after you.
Pyramid Head is going to come.
Yeah, like that's it. And it must be a really hard position to be in from a creative standpoint, because the visual presentation and the kind of the presence of Pyramid Head is so strong. So strong that there's a fantastic piece of art early on in Silent Hill 2 when you go to the museum and you're kind of walking around and you go up and you're looking at all of the historical pictures of Silent Hill, and they show, and I believe it is actually just called The Executioner, and it's just this very like tea-stained, moth-eaten, aged brown like rag with this like very not detailed front-facing look of Pyramid Head just stood there with some cages hanging beside him. And it's just such a wonderful visual. It's just such a very striking image when you look at it. You're like, oh God. Yeah, like God, yeah, oh God, that's awful. Yeah, okay, yeah. And the temptation to put that, especially something that's become so synonymous with the brand in everything in the games and the films, it must be so strong. It must be nearly impossible to walk away from a pure business perspective. You know, people expect it now. You know, the people making the decisions must feel like it's not a Silent Hill game if he's not in there. But honestly, I feel like I hope a lot of these rumors about Silent Hill coming back in some form are true, and if they do, I hope they kind of do what Kojima did in that kind of PT teaser demo that came out a few years back.
Yeah.
And they just kind of go, you know what? This is Silent Hill with none of the baggage. It's Silent Hill in name and name alone. Let's just not even give it a subtitle.
Remake.
Yeah, let's just do the whole
remake.
Yeah, let's just give it a new. It's a single title, Silent Hill, new thing, reboot. Let's go. Let's strip it way back and go. That would be. If there are gaming gods out there, please, please make it happen. Make it so. Make it so. Boys, how are we looking for time on your?
It's been the last time that there was a Silent Hill game. It's been a while.
The last Silent Hill game, 8 years ago, maybe.
It's been
it was
8 years ago.
Was Downpour the last one? I think Downpour was the last one, and I like Downpour. I know Downpour's got a bad rap, but I kind of like Downpour. It had a lot going for it.
Downpour is 8 years ago. Yeah.
Oh boy,
it's been a while.
God, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Because Downpour shared a lot of DNA with things that I love and kind of things that have got me excited for those who remain. You know, it kind of scaled back the abject horror, and it just went for like super unsettling and weird. right? I don't know if either of you played Downpour, but it was,
No.
you know, it had
I haven't.
it had an unexplained postman that would just come out at random times and give you a letter and say, "Hey." Like super twin. I'm not even joking. Like this like super weird postman.
Would show up randomly?
Yeah, I mean, it was at set points in the game. It wasn't like, you know, they were always scripted. They were story beats. But you just like survive something awful, and then a random postman would come out of an environment in which he had no right coming out of, and he'd be like, "I got a letter for you. Look after yourself," and then just walk off, and he'd be like, what, like, you know, it kind of really leaned hard on the kind of, welcome back, Harrison. It leaned.
What was in the letters?
Hey?
Sorry?
Could you read the letters the postman was giving it to you?
No, so not to go into spoilers, because I think you two should play Downfall. This just from
I'm going to.
Just from what you've done, the best way that I can describe it is that the first 3/4 of the game, though they're shoddy, are actually really enjoyable, and it is almost like a HBO show or something like that. It's like a serialized TV show. Yeah, you know, the plot is you're a prisoner in jail, and you're being transported to this other facility for like a really awful crime, and then events happen, and you end up in Silent Hill. The first 3/4 of the game are actually like really enthralling. Like the story beats are really cool. The presentation is pretty good. Overall, I'd say the story and the reveal about the character and what he was in there for is actually real good. It's just a little clunky, and the last quarter of the game you end up in an open world Silent Hill environment doing things like stopping zombies driving around in police cars and stuff. It goes a bit odd at the end, but I think you'd enjoy it, because there's an awful lot in there that I see in Those Who Remain that I really enjoy. You know, it's that kind of Americana, Twin Peaks oddness. You know, it's got a lot of that. There's a radio DJ that is sending like coded signals to you through songs over the town, because he's being watched by the town and he's unable to talk directly. So like the music being played directly reflects on your objectives and what you're doing and stuff. It's a really weird game, but it's got some pretty cool ideas behind it. I didn't hate it. Which is, that's an endorsement, I guess, for anything, is I didn't hate it. How was it for you? Oh, I didn't hate it. Okay, good. That's okay. So, just on the interest, how are we looking on time for you, fine gentlemen? Because I know that you are, I'm stealing some of your valuable time, even though we are working remotely. The industry itself never sleeps, and you are always knee-deep in 1,000,000,001 things. How are we looking time-wise for you guys? Because we've gone for a couple of hours now, which is usually around our current run time.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like you got any gas left in the tank, or do you feel that is a fine time for the internet to hitch up? That was the most pregnant pause on the internet. I'm like, yo, you got any gas in the tank? And I just sandbagged, complete silence. That's perfect. So I'll ask again. Do we feel like we've got a good stop point here to kind of say our goodbyes and let you get back to everything that you got going on?
I'm just going to ask you a question.
Oh, okay. That's not how this is meant to work. I'm the one asking the questions here. Go ahead. I don't mind. Go ahead.
Just a quick one. Have you guys seen the new Doom?
We got it in stage there.
The new what?
The new Doom movie.
The new Doom movie?
Yeah.
The new Doom movie.
I knew there was a new game. I didn't know there was a new movie. How recently are we talking about?
Doom Eternal?
That's the game.
It's like
Doom Annihilation. Are you talking about?
B movie.
Are you talking about Doom Annihilation?
Doom Annihilation, yeah. It went straight to...
I had no idea that was a film. Oh, no.
Well...
Neither did I.
Yeah, that's... exactly.
Well, I know what I'm watching tonight. Oh my god, I had no idea. Is it bad?
3.6 on IMDb.
No, it's not that bad.
I actually kind of liked the first Doom film. I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
The wince.
Camera walking around.
Yeah, you know what? The camera thing was cool. The camera thing was cool.
I think the first movie is just angry guys running around in the dark from one place to another, screaming at each other.
It's Doom. It's Doom. That's Doom. That is what Doom is. And that's why the film was amazing. I'm angry. That's Doom. No worries, love. We're getting some more disruption. Okay, that's fair enough. We may be having a little bit of compression issue on there. No worries, love to play. Thank you for hanging out, though. It's been a pleasure to have you right from the beginning. Please look after yourself.
See you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
Right. So, no, I haven't seen it yet.
But are there any dialogues?
Dialogues?
Yeah. In the movie?
It's the movie is not horrible. It's a budget movie, so if you go into it knowing that it's a budget movie, you can enjoy it.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
I can live with that. I'm gonna watch that tonight. I am. That's gonna be my thing. I'm gonna watch it tonight. You're making me watch the Doom Annihilation film. I hope you're happy. I'll send you my book report tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll send you my book report tomorrow. All right. Well, look. I think that is going to be a good wrap point up on there.
Yeah.
We both have busy schedules, but thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and hang with us. It's been real cool to kind of talk a little more broadly around horror and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, the pair of you. For
it was great.
Genuinely appreciate it.
I think we could keep going for
honestly, that's
hours and hours, right?
that's the only reason why I'm taking the authoritative decision to shut this down is because I know that if we don't, I'm gonna get a phone call in like 4 hours from the lady being like, "Hey, have you eaten yet? Have you showered?" And we're just kind of sat here being like, "No, but seriously, if you think about it, Doom is basically the Citizen Kane of horror films." You know, like that's where we would end up going. But thank you very much, Bruno and Ricardo. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you as always. And chat, thank you very much for your input, for sharing your fears, your horrors, your stories, your anecdotes, your pranks, for putting the fear of ducks looking at you into Bruno, which I'm sure that's gonna be stuck with him for quite some time. But thank you all so much. As I said, the working remote situation over Wildside is everyone is out, everyone's at home, no one's in the office. Streams are going to be in this kind of nature and format until this pandemic hopefully reaches a somewhat desirable outcome sooner rather than later. But due to that, we will be primarily focusing mainly on kind of multiplayer community games, getting people on for discussions and kind of hanging up because I don't have access to all my super secret builds and consoles and everything that I normally do at the office. So thank you very much for coming and hanging out with us during this. It's been super, super amazing fun. You've all been very kind. You've all been so supportive. Those who remain, you may have been initially expecting a May 15th release date, which was what we were originally looking at. There was an announcement put out a couple of weeks ago where we said, hey, you know what, guys? We're going to give the devs a little bit of breathing room. We're going to give everyone working in every corner of the industry a kind of little bit of breathing room and the time to get themselves together in what is a pretty troubling time at the moment for everybody in every industry. And as such, it will be out a little bit later, looking about summertime. We haven't got a solid info date-wise yet, but as soon as we do, we will get on there. We will be throwing up all of the shout-outs for those who remain after the show. So those of you that came over from Twitter or are not already on there, please keep an eye on there. You'll be able to find a link to the game's Discord, to the game's direct Twitter page, to the developer's direct Twitter page, and the handles of these two fine, handsome gentlemen that you see before you. And you'll be able to keep up to date with absolutely everything as we go along. But that's it for us here today for another Wide Show. It's been absolutely fantastic, Bruno. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having us.
Ricardo, thank you very much for your time.
It was a great chat.
And chat, you guys have been amazing. This has been Wild Productions. This has been Camel101. This was our horror show. You've all been fantastic. Take care of each other. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. But if you do, don't get caught. I'm going to have to cut that. Okay. See you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.